Okay, we're going to write quadratic functions today when we're given solutions. So first, let's go back and talk about what solutions are. So a solution of a function is an x value that makes the value of the function 0. That is also called our zeros. And can anyone remember the third option we call it? Roots. All of that is our x-intercepts. So how to write our functions, how to write the equations if we're just given the roots or the zeros, but we're not given any other information. So we're not given a vertex, we're not given all this other stuff. So we're going to look at this first 1 through 4. We want to just find the zeros. If you ever want to find zeros or x-intercepts, we need the factors, because we find them by making the factors equal to 0. So what I want you to do is pause this video, and I want you to factor, so find the parentheses for numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right now. Go. Okay, so those are all of our factors. So then when it comes to the number of zeros, well, how many different parentheses do we have? On the first one, we have 2 sets of parentheses because we have 2 different numbers. Our 2 zeros would be 5 and -4, meaning we have 2 zeros, 2 solutions. On the second one, we had the same parentheses twice. That means we only have 1 zero, 1 x-intercept at 3. The third one, maybe you got a little stuck on it, but that one's prime. If it's prime, that means it doesn't touch the x-axis. There are 0 solutions. There are 0 roots. There are no x-intercepts. And then the last one, 2 zeros, 2 solutions. It would be at 5 and 2. Now what we've talked about already, we used our zeros to talk about the x value of the vertex or the axis of symmetry. The relationship between the zeros and the axis of symmetry, or the x value of your vertex. What's the relationship between those two? Hopefully everyone just thought in their head, or you said it out loud, that the axis of symmetry is in the middle of the zeros. So we're going to use that today to help write our equations. So if we go down to this bottom, we are writing everything in vertex form. Vertex form is y equals a x minus h squared plus k. So with that vertex form, we always need 3 things. We need a, we need h, and we need k. If we're looking at number 1, they give us an a value. They say that a is 1. That's given to us. We're not given an h or a k, but we're given 2 points. Those points are 2 solutions because they both have y equaling 0. So that means that's going to help us get our h value. Add them together, and then divide by 2. So that h value is -2. Then to get our k value, we talked about this on Tuesday. We have an h value, we have an a value. We are also given 2 points, which means we have an x and a y value. So we have values for 4 out of the 5 letters in vertex form. So plug in the 4 out of the 5 and solve for that 5th value in your vertex form. We can pick whichever point we want to use. I'm going to use this first one. So 0 equals 1, and then 2 minus -2, which means plus 2, squared and plus k. This is what we have to deal with first. Specifically, the parentheses and then square it. So 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16. And then 16 times that number 1 on the outside is 16. Now solving for k, we're going to subtract 16, so our k value is -16. Which means we now have a, h, and k and can write vertex form. So y equals 1, and then x minus -2, so plus 2, minus 16. Or if you want, you don't have to write that 1 out in front. So x plus 2 squared minus 16. Okay. We're going to look at number 2. So let's look at number 2. On that problem, we're going to do the exact same thing. We need A, H, and K. We're given A. We can find H by adding these together and then dividing by 2. So our H value is -6. And then using those to solve for K. You can pick whichever X value and Y value you want to use, whichever point. So if you plug those numbers in, 0 equals 1, and then -4 minus -6 to plus 6 squared plus K. -4 plus 6 is 2, so 2 squared is 4, and then 4 times that A value of 1 is 4. Subtracting 4 on each side, so our K value is -4. That means we have alternate parts we need for vertex form. So y equals, we can put a 1 in front of the parentheses if we want, or we can just leave it. And then x plus 6 squared minus 4. So what I want you to do is pause the video again, and I want you to answer problems number 3 and number 4. Do it on your own, or ask a neighbor if you need help, but you need to be working 3 and 4 right now. Okay, here are your answers for 3 and 4. Pause it if you need to check your answers if you didn't get the right answer. If we're good to go, let's move on to the next page. So on the next part, we're going to practice some more. It's just now our A value isn't 1 anymore. We're going to switch it up. So if we look at number 5, it's the exact same thing. We have to find A, H, and K. A is -1 this time. For our H value, add these together, then divide by 2. -5 plus 5 is 0, so 0 divided by 2 is 0. Now pick one of them to use to help solve for K. So we pick this second one. So 0 equals -1, and then 5 minus 0 squared plus K. 5 minus 0 is 5, so 5 squared is 25. So -1 times 25 is -25. So add 25 on each side, so K is 25. There's your answer. Or there's our K value, which means we can now plug in y equals, A is -1, so we can put a -1 or just a negative sign. And then x minus 0 squared plus 25. Does anyone know what part we don't have to include? I hope you all just thought, oh, the 0. So y equals -x squared plus 25. Either of those would be fine. Let's go down to number 7. So on number 7, we're going to do the same thing. It's just that it has fractions now. So A, H, and K. Getting our A value is 4. Our H value, adding these together, so -7/2 plus 3/2 is a -4/2, but -4/2 is really just -2. So we have -2 divided by 2. So -1 for H. So if we pick an X and a Y value, so X, Y, 0 equals 4, and then 3/2 plus 1 squared plus K. If you don't trust yourself, all of that part is just one term with all numbers, so that can all just get typed into your calculator as is. 4 parentheses, 3/2 plus 1, close parentheses, and square it, you get 25. So then subtract 25, so negative 25 is our a value. Which means our equation would be y equals 4, and then x plus 1 squared minus 25. You're going to do number 6 and number 8, but for right now, we're going to move on to the bottom. So you're going to come back when the video is over and do number 6 and number 8. So we're going to look at the 2 questions on the bottom. So suppose negative 2 and 4 are the zeros of a quadratic. How would you use the 2 points to write the equation in vertex form for the parabola that passes through the 2 points? So what were we just doing for our notes? Well, our first step was, also our a value, let's say our a value is 1. We're plugging in the numbers we're using our 2 zeros to find our h value, and then we're plugging in h, a, x, and y to get our vertex form. So let's write that all out. So we use the zeros to find h, then plug in a, h, x, and y in the vertex form, which is here, to solve for k. Pause the video if needed to copy that down. Okay, so we're going to talk about next, if we want to do everything we were just doing, but our end answer is supposed to be in standard form. This one's standard form. And actually, we're going to ignore these points. We're going to go back and use the problem that we just had for number 7. So we're going to use this equation. So I'm going to copy it down below. So we just did all of the steps to get it into vertex form. We would still have to do that if we were given this information. But now we want to go from vertex form to standard form. So if you want to make it standard form, this goes first. If you like double distributing, or if you like that box version, pick your poison. So then this is x squared plus 2x plus 1. We still have a 4 on the outside. We still have a minus 25 in the back part. Now we distribute the 4 in front, so 4x squared plus 8x plus 4, and then minus 25. And then our last step would be combine those. So 4x squared plus 8x, and then minus 21. Okay, so what you are now working on, you're doing number 6 and number 8 from this page, and then on the next page, the one that says homework. Yes, we're working on it. Yes, it's homework if you don't finish it. But on this one, you are answering all of them, every single part of it. But when you get down to numbers to number 3 and number 4, I want you to add in that you are also writing it in standard form. So on number 3 and number 4, you are also going to write them in standard form. Okay, so you are working for the rest of class. Have a great weekend.